climate system is an interconnected composite system consisting of 5 major heterogeneous components, linked by nonlinear fluxes of mass, energy, and momentum across space and time. Over long time periods, the amount of energy entering the system must be balanced by the amount of energy leaving the system, or the climate will change. From this perspective, climate change is a normal characteristic of the climate system. On smaller scales of space and time, energy input tends not to be proportional to the output or the system response to the forcing. This generates deterministic complexity and a nonlinear system ruled by chaotic order, where the energy input or the forcing is dissipated over time by the output, the system response to that forcing. This presentation will mainly focus upon the southern Appalachians. Here I show the southern and central Appalachians as the largest mass of elevated terrain east of the Mississippi in North America. Geological division between the central and southern Appalachians is marked by a distinctive change in the strike of the mountain ridges. The presence of the Appalachians acts to change the climate of the North American continent, with impacts extending far outside the actual mountains. This is possible given that heat and temperature are expressions of energy. A prominent orographic influence is related to atmospheric heating. Since temperature differences act to create pressure differences that generate pressure gradients that drive wind, the Appalachians, by their very existence, function as a forcing mechanism on the atmosphere. A 72-year composite mean sea level pressure of the mountain empire of the southern Appalachians finds cool air relative to surrounding regions of the southeastern United States supports higher pressure in the mean. Air temperatures at the highest elevations rarely rise above the 70s. While the southern Appalachians have 4 very distinct seasons, as illustrated here by High Knob Lake Basin in the High Knob Massif, these seasons may not correlate well with the astronomical season. From a forcing perspective, there are only 2 seasons, the orographic forcing season and the convective forcing season. The orographic forcing season is a time of year in which synoptic scale storm systems develop pressure gradients that physically push against the mountains. Climate forcing can be defined as any change to the climate system that can be expected to change the climate. So when the atmosphere pushes on the mountains, they push back. This is a key feature of orographic forcing. The pushback by the mountains is known as a mountain torque. The mountain torque equation is more complicated than this on a global basis, but for this presentation, I've simplified it to essentially mean the summation of the pressure difference across the mountain barrier between the eastern and western slopes within a volume of the atmosphere of a vertical depth. From this perspective, mountain torque can be both positive and negative. During positive mountain torques, the atmosphere pushes westward against the mountains to generate a torque that opposes the rotation of the Earth. On a global scale, this can actually slow down the planet and lengthen the time of a day. For the mountain empire, positive mountain torque events favor breaking mountain waves along the western side of the barrier. Positive mountain torque events may also be associated with historic weather events, including snow, but especially flooding and severe thunderstorms. An example being the Great Appalachian Flood of April 1977, and the super tornado outbreak of April 2011, with lower pressure along the west side of the barrier and higher pressure along the east. During a negative mountain torque, the atmosphere pushes eastward against the mountains to generate a torque that enhances the rotation of the Earth. On a global scale, this can speed up the rotation and shorten the length of a day. In the mountain empire, a negative mountain torque event favors speed up of airflow as air rushes from higher pressure along the western side of the mountain barrier into lower pressure along and east of the mountains. Negative mountain torque events may also be associated with historic storm events, especially during the winter. The superstorm of March 1993. and the crippling snow of December 2009 being only two of many examples. Many factors are important to the orographic enhancement of precipitation. This presentation is too short to go into all these factors, but they are part of an orographic cedar feeder mechanism, in which precipitation from a large-scale synoptic cedar cloud falls into the rich environment of an orographic feeder cloud. Precipitation at the surface is enhanced by moisture-rich environment of the feeder cloud, with water vapor and or ice where collision and coalescence and accretion processes add to the falling cedar cloud precipitation. This includes the riming of snowflakes that add water content to winter snowpacks. Feeder cloud bases tend to be lower on the windward, upstream side of mountain barriers. It is important to note that enhanced moisture of the feeder cloud may not always be visible when present. The orographic cedar feeder mechanism may also cause Doppler radar to underestimate surface precipitation in favored orographic areas. Fog drip from trees in above freezing air and rain deposition and drop from trees in below freezing air also become very important secondary inputs of moisture, especially at upper elevations. In the upper elevations, there may be multiple layers of feeder cloud development beneath a cedar cloud. Inside an orographic feeder cloud, you have enhanced fog drip from trees in above freezing air. In below freezing air, rime deposition and eventual drop will add greatly to the annual moisture budget. This is why it's important not to log in favored orographic areas where the presence of trees act to greatly enrich the moisture budget of headwater stream generating locations. During the convective forcing season, there are many interactions between the atmosphere and the terrain. These range from thunderstorm flanking of mountain barriers where convective cores take advantage of differential heating and the steepness of mountain slopes to support themselves, to mountain and gravity wave interactions with convection, to positive and negative feedbacks, which can contribute to very large, short-distance rainfall differences. The implications of this become greater when adding in the coupling between soil moisture and air temperature. This coupling can explain why the southern Appalachians can be cooler during summer, at least by daytime, than drier areas to the north within the central and the northern Appalachians, where the sensible heat flux is greater than within the much wetter, larger latent heat flux areas of the southern Appalachians. Looking at mean long-term airflow trajectories, finds a composite southwesterly flow between the surface and 850 millibars. This has an important climate implication related to the lifting of air with respect to adjacent mountains. This is key to locating the wettest areas within the southern and the central Appalachians. Moisture extraction with lifting and sinking is a very important concept related to orographic forcing. For example, take mountain number 1 on the diagram, subjected to rich, abundant moisture available to forcing by orographic lift with no upstream mountains. By contrast, mountain number 5 has less total moisture available to forcing by orographic lift due to drying and condensational processes associated with upstream mountains along the mean annual low-level airflow trajectory. Theoretically, with the exact same amount of lifting, mountain number 1 will be wetter. Mountain number 5 would have to be exceptional, either much higher in total elevation or much greater in total width to compensate for the moisture extraction by upstream topography. Given the middle latitude location of the southern Appalachians, it is not surprising to find that the 72-year mean above the summit level of the mountains is westerly. Upon the orographics and feedbacks of the longer-term pattern are changes in climate that become superimposed on the local and regional conditions. Reference my climate change videos for more information. While the time for this presentation has come to a conclusion, Some of the energy input, the forcing, into the southern Appalachians is used to support rich biological diversity. I invite you to please enjoy some of the wondrous beauty and majesty of this ancient mountain landscape.